So taking care of all these different criteria, of course criterion, like I've told you, including ability of a certain reduction approach to restore the integrity of the ecosystem, including the potential of this particular risk reduction strategy or option to enhance the livelihood of the people, and the potential of this particular risk reduction option to contribute to greenhouse gas emission reduction requires a multi-criteria approach that should be considered and tools that should support it in the need to be, of course, to evaluate the different management options. So when we are evaluating and ranking or prioritizing some of these risk reduction strategies, we need to use a multi-criteria approach, not looking at one particular component in isolation, but looking at the ability of these risk reduction strategies to contribute towards attaining all these that we need. For example, improving ecosystems, improving livelihoods of the people, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but also maybe enhancing the resilience of communities and systems. So once you have done the prioritization, you have come up with the options that you will need to implement, you have prioritized them, you have determined which one you will implement in the short run, which one you will implement in the medium term, and which one you will implement in the long term. Then you go into the budgeting and financing options. The budgeting and costing of each of the investment option, of each of the risk reduction strategy. You budget for it. What will you need? How much will you need? Of how many or the quantities? Okay, determine the bills of quantities, and once you have the bills of quantities, determine the cost of each of them in terms of packages, for how long you need to implement it. Then you cost that, including the labor, including the human resource, including the monitoring and evaluation items that you need to do it, how you'll be able to measure the impact, how you need to monitor, what are the indicators. So you budget for everything. Now once you have costed this plan, then you define the financing options. Where will you get the funds? What are the existing and potential financing options for this particular plan, for these investment options that you have come up with? In most cases, especially for climate change risk management, there can be different financing options. They can be communities themselves, the people themselves. In terms of their work that they do, they could incorporate some of these options in their daily work. For example, if you are farming communities, you can go agroforestry. You start to incorporate trees in your farming activities. You can start mulching, okay? Try to increase soil retention. You can integrate cover cropping, okay, in your cropping systems, so that then you retain more moisture, you reduce erosion, you stabilize the slopes, okay? It can be part of that. Then they could include district local governments, for example. They have annual budgets. They can be able to take part of the items mentioned in the plan and posted into their budgets, the annual budgets, and be able to implement and finance some of these activities. The central governments, they can be part. The agents, for example, National Environment Management Authority, Ministry of Water and Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries for Uganda's case, can be sources of funding. So you also define the financing options and lay them down into the plan. A good plan should integrate an estimation of the required resources and the possible sources of financing. It is important, okay, to do this, just as it is most management plans fail due to lack of financial resources to implement them. I'll give you an example. For Uganda, for many years, we have switched to integrated catchment-based management planning or water resource management planning. Okay, we have grown plans through the Ministry of Water and Environment. They have hired consultants and they have developed plans almost for each and every major river. But most of them are not yet implemented. Sometimes even the planning period expires without being implemented because of lack of sufficient funding. So it is very important when you are drawing plans, even in climate change risk management, to also see how are we going to mobilize the resources to finance the plan. So it is very important this to be part and the partial of the overall planning period and process and be laid out very well clearly in the plan document. Now, when we have planned, we have got financing and we are implementing, it is important also to include the monitoring and evaluation plan as part of the overall document, plan document. This should be part and partial of every management plan. Climate and environmental components are dynamic amidst the changing human behavior and preferences. Even a well-formulated management plan can become obsolete with time. So it is therefore important to keep monitoring and evaluating the plan to see whether the earlier proposed measures still adequately address the situation at hand. So you must be able to do the monitoring and evaluation to understand and evaluate to see whether the things are moving as you planned, or else you may need to change certain things. Oil finance here, of course, there is the institution, policy and legal framework that has to be included in the overall plan of the risk management. You need to define and determine and understand the existing institutions and legal frameworks. This could include international conventions and protocols and agreements that are relevant for climate change risk management. They could include, of course, different national laws and policies. And here I want to ask you, of course, to look at these protocols and interventions, international conventions that are relevant in your context. Discuss the extent to which your country, your district has gone in the extent of implementing these, the national policies that are relevant, and how the institutions are arranged in terms of managing climate change risks in your district, in your own area, in your country, and your own areas. And I want to end this by encouraging you to make field trips. Of course, go somewhere, identify and document different farm-based agroecological systems, understand them, and see how each of them is enhancing climate change resilience and contributing to climate change risk reduction. Compare these different practices and be able, of course, to put and make recommendations of the best practices, understand how each of these is influencing climate change risks and reducing or contributing to climate change risk in different landscapes, in different fields, in different farming communities. This brings us to the end of our climate change risk management lessons and videos. I hope you have benefited from the videos. You have benefited from this particular one, the previous ones. If you haven't watched the previous ones, please encourage you to go and look for them. There are 7 of them. Go through them, watch them, and be able to learn from them. I hope they will help you to understand climate change risks better, understand how to assess them, and be able to draw climate change risk management plans for your communities, for your work organizations, for your districts, local governments, for your countries and organizations at large. I thank you very much and God bless you.